here with artist Cora Waterhouse. Cora is one of the teachers here at Tampa Regional Artists, and I wanted to ask you about your career as an artist and maybe what kind of got you started here at Tampa Regional Artists. What inspired you to teach here?
Well, so I've been teaching for many, many years, over 30 years. I started with teaching children at an art museum after school art program at a little art museum in Georgia. I taught kids for about 13 years, and towards the end of that 13 years, some adults in the community, I was known in the community as a portrait painter. I did commission work, and I began the Visual Artists Alliance there, and I also worked for an interior designer at the same time. So I painted just about everything I could possibly paint in every way I could. And so at the beginning of each year, when I had my students, they were teenagers, I would have them start with still life because drawing is the foundation of all art. I would start them right back to the basics. So in September, they would draw still life, and in January, they would draw figure drawing.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's wonderful. And
yeah,
you teach multiple classes here at
I do.
TRA. So tell us about, you just told me about how you structured your teaching there. What do you teach here, and how do you teach your students? What's the foundation of that?
Well, so when I was teaching kids, I always had a lesson plan. I always had an objective, and I would make sure that each of them progressed through. If the monthly theme was sculpture, then I would have them do paper sculpture, and then I would have them do wire sculpture, and then I would have them do plaster sculpture. But each class had an objective, and each class had a lesson plan. So as I was saying, I was teaching teenagers, and some adults in the community started taking my drawing classes with the teenagers because no one was offering that to adults.
Mhm.
Many times when you join an adult class, they almost give you too much respect. They step away from you and they assume that you know things. But I have a very 1950s mom kind of a,
Mhm.
I want to make sure I've told you everything. And
Right,
then if you're not doing what I ask you to do, at least I know that you're not doing it on purpose.
right. Hmm.
That I've
Yeah.
already told you what's right and how it's done. So what I decided when I stopped teaching kids, my kids went off to college,
Hmm.
and I started teaching adults. And
Right.
so I wrote a set of curriculum for beginning adults in drawing, because drawing to me is the foundation of everything. I wanted to make sure that most of them came and said, I want to learn to paint.
Right.
And I said, well, you can learn to paint, but you need to learn to draw first. And it's really because 90% of what's wrong with a bad painting is a bad drawing.
Hmm.
So I started at the very beginning with them, and I wrote curriculum for beginning drawing students as adults. And that first group of people, I would chunk down at a lesson. I would think, how do I do this, and how what's my thought process? And I would write the lesson plan, and I would teach it to them. And sometimes the lesson would be like, great, and everybody would just do great, right?
Yeah.
And then sometimes it would be just like it would hit the wall and just slide down, and nobody got it. So then I would go
Yeah.
back to the
Hmm.
drawing board and rewrite it. So I
Right.
ended up writing an entire series that way. I
Yeah.
wrote beginning drawing, and then because it was a stagnant community, people
Hmm.
didn't move in or out. It wasn't Atlanta, it was a small town.
Right.
So when they finished the beginning drawing course, they said, now what are we going to learn? I
Hmm.
said, oh, wait a minute, because
Yeah,
my idea was
absolutely.
to be this, like I said, a 1950s parent.
Hmm.
I felt like if I did my job right, they were going to graduate and move on,
Of course.
go to other artists,
Right.
go learn more from better mentors
Hmm.
than me, right?
Right. Well, I think that says a lot about you as a mentor if they wanted to stick with you and stay here.
They really didn't have anywhere
Absolutely.
else to go. So so I then wrote intermediate drawing,
Right.
and I subsequently wrote 4 courses
Hmm.
for adults, beginning drawing starts at the absolute beginning, placing a line, learning about how light falls over form, and creating tonal drawings. And then at the end of that course, you're doing full, beautiful tonal still lifes.
Yeah.
And then the second course is intermediate.
Mm-hmm.
And that course is made up of 3 mini courses. What do you do with these drawing skills once you have them?
Right.
So do you want to be a landscape artist? Do you want to
Mm-hmm.
do interiors, exteriors? Well, you're going to need to know a little bit about perspective then.
Mm-hmm.
So that course, that little mini course is 4 lessons. We go from the still life and we go into the room and then we go outdoors with new lessons in perspective the whole time. And then the second month of the intermediate course is portraits.
Mm-hmm.
My love.
Yeah.
This is what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And teaching people to go from, with those beginning drawing skills, looking for shapes in a face now, looking for shapes in a person, looking at them objectively, the same way you did with a still life, to create a portrait.
Yeah.
And learning the basic rules of proportion.
Mm-hmm. Right.
In that course, right?
Yeah.
In those 4 weeks. So we went from, mannequins to real life.
Right.
The final is a live model.
Of course.
And then the next course, and then we do pencil rendering,
Mm-hmm.
because you can't teach drawing without teaching
Yeah.
pencil rendering.
Absolutely.
You have to. So
yeah.
the next course is color,
Mm-hmm.
mixing color in a dry medium. I figured that it was going to be easier to teach people quantities and mixing deliberately in a dry medium.
Right.
So just imagine, instead of with paint, you'll go, okay, well, I'm going to mix some green,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I'm going to take some blue, and I'm going to take some yellow, and I'm going to squish them together and go, not quite right. Well,
Right.
And instead, when you're working with a dry medium, a pastel,
Mm-hmm.
you lay in this much of this much of that. You understand
Right.
how many strokes you use of each.
Mm-hmm. Instead of using color wheel to kind of make your color from scratch, you're building it up as you go along.
That's
Is that what you're
right.
saying?
And blending it
Yeah.
as you go, so
Absolutely.
that it's both tactile,
Mm-hmm.
it's experiential.
Yeah.
You work with the primary palette for a
Right.
very long time. If you
Mm-hmm.
can give yourself a solid exploration of the primary palette and its
Mm-hmm.
capabilities,
Mm-hmm.
that is rock solid. You can take that to any medium.
I mean,
after
perfect
that.
advice for the current show that we have up,
Oh,
primary
right.
colors.
You're right.
Absolutely.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah,
It
we
is a
have
primary
the
color
primary.
show.
This is would be the perfect show to explore that.
That's exactly
Absolutely.
right. So we work and so in that color course, we start back out again with still lifes, and then we go to a landscape, and your final is a grand still life that you do in each course. So you'll do the same still life in each course, because artists within their studios do that.
Yeah.
They'll start with a drawing,
Mm-hmm.
and then they'll do a color study, a couple of maquettes before they go into a final painting.
Yeah.
So it's a longer progression. And then the last course is painting.
Great.
So when people come to me and say they want to learn to paint, I'm like, you can, but let's try this first.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah.
So,
beautiful. Thank you
Yep.
so much, Cora. I
You're
really
welcome.
appreciate you taking the time to talk with me today.
Sure.